I was thinking about what it means to live a life we might look back on with pride. It's our life. It's individual to us. It ties it to our subjective conscious experience, our perception, our judgments, decisions. Being able to have a subjective experience is what makes us individuals almost by definition. Um, and this applies obviously whether you're having a purely physical experience or you believe that you're a spiritual self having a physical experience. My name's Anthony. I'm like to talk about sort of ideas, philosophies, technology, literature, other things. If you like this kind of short-term exploration, feel free to subscribe, leave a comment with your own thoughts on this topic. I'd love to hear what you have to say, and any corrections you have, or deeper insights. I'd love to hear those as well. So, learning experience. One of the aspects of most normal subjective experiences seems to be the ability to just to comprehend something. So you have this awareness, and you can experience something, but then the next level of that is to understand what it is that you're experiencing, what you're observing, what you're focusing on. And then with this comprehension, very quickly comes some kind of judgment of some sort. Our optic nerves in our brains, they have mechanisms to establish value hierarchies, which is a type of judgment, which is itself a form of sort of nascent decision. And I think this decision step is critical because it's at that point that our ability to experience is transformed into our ability to affect the world. The philosopher Kant said that the will is the only thing in the world that can be purely good. Um, Whether or not I agree with that, I think certainly the will can be tainted here. But to kind of elaborate on that a little bit, or to take a different perspective, I saw something Jonathan Pajot, an Orthodox Christian, posted where he quotes Saint Maximus the Confessor, who delineated a more pure spiritual will and an earthly, fleshy will driven by the sort of natural privation of the world, hunger and desire for a mate and all that sort of thing. And in that framework, I guess, your choices in this life are some combination of those two wills that comprise us here as people. I do wonder, you can probably tell me it's probably not true, but I do wonder if it's related to the little angel and devil on your shoulder in traditional stories. It's probably just an angel and devil, but it'd be an interesting parallel there. I'll link to Peugeot's video in the description. It's pretty good. So hold that thought for a minute. Let's jump over to the meaning of life. Kind of a big topic. Well, but what is the meaning of life? What is a life well lived? And you'll get different answers from different belief systems. And excuse me if I get yours slightly wrong as I summarize a few. Again, feel free to correct me. In Judaism, you'd say that a person followed all the mitzvot. They followed all the more than 600 behavioral laws, and in doing so, they brought the divine into the mundane. They brought God into eating and going to bed and all these things. In Buddhism, it's removing your sense of ego and acting selflessly. Simplifying there. Greek philosophers might say life is well lived if it was filled with virtuous actions, driven by informed and driven by ethics and reason. Christianity wants you to transform your core self, your heart, to align better with God, and then manifest that alignment in the world by imitating the life of Christ. And utilitarianism is all about maximizing good and minimizing suffering, or at least it's something somewhat about that, is my understanding. So there's a spectrum of how much import is put on who you actually are, or even if who you feel yourself to be inside is more who you are than what you do, or the other way around. Jordan Peterson, I think, said that what you believe is best represented by what you act out in the world, which doesn't seem unreasonable on the surface. But regardless, if we go back to our conscious existence topic, we know that our internal sentiment and physical actions are outcomes of that initial judgment and decision-making process that happens based on who we are holistically. I think we can't say that outcomes denote whether someone has lived a good life because we don't fully control outcomes. Maybe instead of a good life, we should say a life worth honoring? Can we live a life that we ourselves would want to honor if we saw it in someone else? We would want to honor someone who chose the good, that tried to live that ethical, selfless, upward looking life. Sometimes, especially if they're facing impossible circumstances, that's heroic. That's what we consider heroic. From that, we can say probably that making wise decisions toward the good is actually the basis of a good life. So we want to make wise decisions. And in fact, that seems to be, it seems that making, decisions that are wise is the basis of the part of reality that matters to us, right? So it's the part that we are attending to, that we're paying attention to. That's the part we value, and so making decisions in that part of life is inherently what's going to define our existence and whether we've attended to the correct things or not. It's our connection to that, from to reality, from both perceptual and actual directions. So decisions then are the most important functional thing in life that we do. They define our reality. And good decisions, wise decisions, require good information, which means we need accurate and careful perception. If there's one thing in the modern world we don't spend enough time on, I think it's patiently and carefully perceiving. You need a little quiet, you need a little stillness, and you need some time to think. And we don't get much of that because everything is about vying for our attention. There's so many things happening in life, especially when you get older, if you have a family. So how do you live a life worth honoring then? Well, you could say, in some ways, you could be like the Ents in Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. You want to watch and listen carefully. You want to learn from what you observe and hear. You want to think about that deeply, and then you want to use as much wisdom as you can to decide slowly. But once you have decided, don't hesitate. You want to act with the energy and confidence that only comes to sane people when their whole being has aligned around the chosen purpose. So find some quiet and don't be hasty. Obviously, there's times when you know you have to make a decision. So it's not universal, but in the broad swaths of life, it's not a bad policy. Let me know what you think about this. Is there a greater danger in not making a decision quickly enough than in making the wrong decision? Always, sometimes. How do we decide, between those two circumstances? Is the answer different if you're considering eternity versus the short term, the here and now? Sometimes it is true that just making a decision is the best decision. Let me know what you think. Take care.